Welcome to Rising Tide Startups, where we chat with startup founders and solopreneurs just like you from all over the globe. During our chat today, picture yourself starting your own startup journey. If our guests can do it, you can too. Every episode of Rising Tide Startups is sponsored by Podbrand Media. Let Podbrand create and host your company branded podcast. Learn more at podbrandmedia.com. This is Rising Tide Startups. My name is Kevin Pruitt. I'm the host, and I have a special guest today, Will Milliken. Will, thanks for joining us on Rising Tide.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Already, so many questions. I mean, just looking at the neon sign behind his head. But Will, I'm already cheating on what I think you would answer me. But if you and I met at a networking event, how would you introduce yourself to me?
Yeah. So I'm the president of a multi-million-dollar dog waste removal company, if you can believe it. I'm also the founder of the Poop Scoop Millionaire community on School. And we basically take care of what's probably the most hated chore of all time for a lot of people, which is going out and picking up dog poop. So we built our business around that. Kind of started off as a joke, but things took off like crazy. And there's a lot of other people looking to get into the industry as well, which I just find really cool.
And it's one of these things, it's definitely a geographically based, AI, it probably is not going to have that big an impact on poop scooping in the next 6 months, or I'm guessing. But tell us a little bit, family, where you live, round it out a little bit.
Yeah, so I live in Spokane, Washington. So on the Eastern Washington, we're about 4 or 5 hours away from Seattle. So not the same place.
Area.
We do have a location in Seattle. We have a location in Spokane. We have a location in North Idaho. Married, got 2 kids. I grew up in the Spokane area. Really, my background was in digital marketing. I actually have a kind of a small portfolio of home service companies. And I realized if I just partner with operators, I can kind of grow these businesses really fast. So I got an electrical company, garage door company, but definitely the Poop Scoop company is kind of the crown jewel. And that's the one that is taking off like crazy. It's really where most of my focus is going nowadays.
So it sounds like to me that you were kind of in the service biz industry and you thought, okay, here's another one. I can wash windows, we can mow lawns, we can do trash removal, whatever. How about poop scooping? How about poop removal? So when that first came across your mind, you thought, maybe there's an easier way to make money here than this.
So at the time, my first company that wasn't in marketing, I had an electrical company. I partnered with an electrician that's been in the trades for 30 plus years. I had a buddy from high school that was like, dude, your business took off. Like, we should start a business together. Like, what should we do? I was trying to figure out what kind of skills he had. He wasn't like a plumber or didn't do HVAC or nothing like that. And my wife was pregnant at the time, and she ended up hiring a pooper scooper, and they totally sucked. They didn't have any good systems, like the way they build people. They didn't show up like a lot of the time. They had no branding. So I looked at him and I said, "Hey, let's give this a go and see if this is going to be legit or not." So I had no idea if it was going to take off. I think my goal is to make like an extra $1,000 a month, nothing crazy, and definitely turned into a lot more than that.
So how does one begin the process? How does one go about pricing how much it's going to cost is it per square foot, per square yard? Is it based on the size of yard, based on how many dogs you got, based on the size of the dog? I mean, what all those factors come into play?
Yeah, you can definitely be pretty creative about how you want to price. We try to keep it pretty simple. So will price based on how many dogs you have and then the cleanup frequency that you want. So we'll come out either twice a week, once every other week, or once a month. People aren't out in their yard very often. And then we base our pricing off of just kind of like the average size yard. So somebody has a big yard, it's half an acre, we're obviously going to charge more money for that. But the standard pricing is just based off of how many dogs you have and how often you want us to come and clean up.
That really is crazy. So I can't imagine the first time that you actually approached somebody and you said, "Hey, I can clean up all the dog poop in your yard and it's going to be $50 a week, or it's going to be $100 a week or whatever." And they went, "What? You're going to charge me that much to clean up poop?"
Yeah. It's not that much. Our average client pays a little over $100 a month. So it's about between $25 and $30 per cleanup, but each cleanup probably only takes like 5 to 7 minutes. So it's pretty quick in and out.
That's amazing. So, I mean, literally, as we were preparing for this, I was thinking earlier in the week, I'm thinking just like interesting questions to ask. And I always try to kind of dissect the business model, and I'm thinking if I went in my backyard with all the obstacles in my backyard to find every poop pile in my yard might take me an hour and a half. So how can you get in and out of a yard in 7 minutes?
Yeah, I think it's just once you do it for a long time, you kind of get an eye for it. So it's about we walk every yard in a specific grid pattern. We check all the bushes, all the rocks, all the areas that the dog might do its business. So we're pretty systemized about it. We have really good tools that are actually pretty affordable and easy to get that make the process just as streamlined as possible. So that's kind of yeah what I would say.
Well, it's certainly a needed business. One thing that I really appreciate about, how you're kind of approaching this in general, just kind of the service-based businesses. Are you familiar with a lady named Cody Sanchez?
Yeah, yep.
So, I mean, she's online, virtually ubiquitous. I mean, she's everywhere right now, but she's talking about, these kind of brick and mortar, these trade businesses, that
Mhm.
are just, people just kind of overlook them and say, I want to go for the glossy stuff. And it
Yep.
seems like to me that you guys are kind of like separated at birth. You have kind of the same economic DNA in your
Mhm.
mind that says, hey, these are moneymakers.
Yep.
These are absolutely, they're just printing money, if you do this well. So
Yeah.
what are some key lessons that you learned really early, like from your very first service business, you thought, wow, these are some things that we need to put in place. I mean, you mentioned a few of them, I think, already with the kind of the Poop Scoop business, but
Yeah.
what are some just basic frameworks that you would put in place
Mhm.
with any service business?
Yeah, well, definitely. Well, I do appreciate the comment about Cody Sanchez. I will say the one thing that's probably different about us is that I just started everything from scratch instead of buying businesses. So you could definitely do it both ways.
That's a great clarification. Yep.
But with that being said, I might take her advice in the future and start buying stuff. But anyways, as far as some key things that you want to have in a service-based business, probably one of the most important things is having standardized pricing and flat rate pricing. So nowadays, people don't like to pay by the hour. They're going to be looking over your shoulder. They don't know what their final bill is going to be. So I think that's one of the most important things.
Hmm.
Also, being as streamlined as possible. So having a CRM, having a good follow-up process, and then also responding to customers quickly, especially for like home service trades. Like people will just pick up the phone, they'll call whoever's number one on Google, and they'll just start working their way down the list. People don't answer the phone. So being quick and responsive is going to be key no matter what service industry you're in. I know I buy that way. I'm sure a lot of other people listening probably buy the same way as well. So that's definitely key. And then having a good brand, being professional, making sure everybody's wearing uniforms. If you can
Hmm.
afford it, getting all your vehicles wrapped. That's going to allow you to charge more. It's going to allow your conversion rates to go up. It's going to build more trust. It's going to build more marketing, and everything will just continually kind of work together and form this money printing machine at some point, which is pretty cool.
I mean, some of the things you mentioned are almost like second stage, like, wrapping vehicles and
Mhm.
everybody's wearing uniforms, stuff like that. So go back to the early days. I mean, what were some of the things that you like from day one? I woke up and I said, hey, I'm going to start a window cleaning business,
Mhm.
or maybe it's electrical, partnership that you built. So what were some things that you could do literally from day one that may not be kind of at the level of the window wrapper? We have a full blown
Mhm.
CRM, and follow up and
Mhm.
billing system in place. What are some earlier stage things that people are just, they're sitting in the cubicle thinking, I got to do something,
Mhm.
to get out of here.
Definitely.
What can I do tomorrow type thing?
Yeah. So literally, probably the most important thing is to find a consistent customer acquisition channel. So I know for a lot of trades, getting on Google is going to be a top priority. So you can get a Google My Business profile for free. You can start doing work or for asking friends, getting reviews, start kind of building that up over time. And then the next thing I look at are if there are specific lead platforms that will you just pay a specific dollar amount and then you actually get a lead versus like maybe Google pay per click where you can just burn thousands of dollars if you don't know
Yeah.
what you're doing really quick.
Yeah.
So I know some of those get hates. You got your Angie's lists and things like that. But if you're fast and you're responsive, you can still make money with those platforms. I'd say that's probably the most important thing. And then depending on what business you're in, so like the Poop Scoop business, it doesn't work the same as the electrical, the garage door, any of
Hmm.
those businesses because a lot of people don't know that it exists. So
Hmm.
the way we get clients that way is we started by posting in like Facebook groups, like buy sell trade groups in Spokane, Craigslist of Spokane, those types of things. And eventually we were able to get enough money and invest into Facebook ads and get the message in front of people. And they're like, oh, this is a cool business. And just kind of get our client acquisition streamlined and consistent through that channel. So it's going to depend on what business you're at, but that's the first thing that I would go after.
Are you at the point now that you're actually franchising this, or you just have like multi locations and you kind of have like a coaching, group that you're kind of running on the side as well?
Yes, we got a couple locations. I have a list of about 100 people that have asked me to buy a Swoop Scoop franchise. So that's something that we may consider in the future. But right now, our online community is a top. I think we're top 5 on the whole school platform as far as business community goes. So
Wow,
it's
that's amazing.
actually going kind of crazy. Yeah, we got
Hmm.
almost 700 people in there, which is really cool. It's a really good business, especially for people that are just starting off, because you can literally get into it with no employees. Once you get your route built up, you can handle between 100, 150 clients. Like you could make a 6-figure income picking up dog poop with no employees and not a lot of stress. So it's really cool to kind of unlock that for people that maybe were afraid to start a business, because it's like if you're not willing to start a poop scoop business, I don't know what's easier than this. You're
Yeah.
probably not going to start one. You know what I mean?
Like it was interesting because one of my former jobs I was in, I was actually an insurance adjuster
Okay.
in my earlier life. And one of the biggest hazards of the job was just dogs,
Yep.
just dogs you couldn't predict. So is that part of the contract? You say, okay, this dog's got to be indoors when we're back there. You got to, it's got to be a set time. The dog's not running loose and chasing us around the yard while we're trying to pick up the poop.
Yeah.
What are the rules?
So the way that we do it is if the dog's aggressive or doesn't do well with strangers, we require they be left inside. You kind of go both ways. Some people are a little bit overcautious with this, but in our experience, dog bites are very, very rare.
Hmm.
And typically when they happen, it's because the dog's left inside and somebody's kid lets the dog out while one of our employees are out in the yard or something like that. So I think I was looking at, we've cleaned over 180,000 yards, and yeah, we've only had a small handful of dog bites. So
180,000?
yep, we got a little tracker on our website
That
that tracks
that
every
is
time we do one. So,
insane numbers. When did you start this? What year?
2021 was our first full year.
You've done 180,000 yards since 2021.
Yep, yep.
That is insane numbers. And I mean, how did COVID affect, this, or did you think, hey, this is an outdoor business?
We also started right in the smack middle of COVID as well.
Yeah.
So, looking back, I honestly think that might have been more of a benefit than a
Mm,
drawback. People were getting their stimulus checks. Everybody was home. They didn't want to pick up the
getting
poop
dogs.
still. So it's a low cost service, right? We're talking 100, $125 a month for most people. So it's not crazy high ticket. So I think that helped us capture a lot of the market initially.
And I mean, it makes perfect sense. I mean, it's not something that you have to convince them that there's a need. I
Yeah.
mean, you have little kids, if you've been out in the yard and stepped in something and, left your shoes out on the back deck for a month because you didn't want to clean them. Yeah, that's like, I mean, it's like a confession time here.
Yeah.
I certainly understand. There's no learning curve here. I get it from day one. I know
Yep.
exactly what the need is and why you're offering, but
Yeah.
what are some other, like, take us in the kind of like the imagination machine here. What are some other crazy ideas that you've had that maybe you haven't acted on yet?
Some crazy ideas. One thing that we were trying to develop, but haven't fully developed, we're trying to come up with almost like a health club for dogs. So they make these collars, kind of like the Oura Ring, that track like your pulse and your health and all that kind of stuff. We're looking to partner with somebody that has a collar, and then kind of creating like a health club as like an add-on service, right? Help people's dogs live longer, help them have a higher quality of life, help the owners have a higher quality of life because they aren't scooping dog poop all day. So that was one thing that we had looked into, but we honestly haven't even added any extra services to our client base right now. All we do is scoop poop. And we've been super focused just on doing that and doing that the best we can until we get to a little bit bigger scale.
Well, I mean, if you're thinking like you're in what, 3 locations now? You said Northern Iowa, Spokane, and Seattle
Yep.
areas.
Yep.
I mean, that's only one out of 50 states.
Hmm.
You're really, one and a
Yeah.
half out of 50 states that you've looked at right now so far. So
Yeah.
and there's
Yeah.
a big world out there that you haven't even touched. But have you thought about, like, accessories and stuff like that? I mean, could you buy like little pins from, that is in the corner of the yard that's kind of a detractant to a dog, like I've seen people put like cedar chips down and stuff like that
Hmm.
to, cause a dog to go to the bathroom in the same place, at the
Yeah.
have
That's a good idea.
any of those, I just my entrepreneurial gears are spinning of just, ways to even make your job easier. If you can
Yeah.
localize the poop in the corner of the yard,
Yeah. If we can get
you're
the
in there
dogs
in and out in a minute
yeah.
and a half, instead of
Exactly. Yeah,
7.
we'll be
So,
we'll be cruising then. No, I mean we've really just been focused on making the service is already incredibly simple, but just streamlining the process and being as
mhm.
efficient as possible. We service a couple thousand customers every week right now, just doing the same thing. So it's a lot easier for me to poke some buttons and increase my marketing spend and get another 100, 200 customers than to add a whole nother service line right now.
Oh yeah, I get it. I get it. I am curious though, if you got your like your standard operating procedure down so streamlined and so like dialed in, that would be very easy to replicate that 100 times.
Hmm. No,
What's kept
definitely.
you, or what's been then your hesitance to say, "Yeah, okay, fine, we'll franchise this,
Hmm.
we'll do some video training, we'll license you for a certain territory, here's all the manuals, here's the CRM we use, here's the finance or accounting system
Hmm.
we use. It's this much flat fee and then this much percentage a month,
Hmm.
all billed through us type thing. So,
Yeah,
uh,
I mean, honestly, before this year, I think the reason was I didn't feel like we were good enough yet. I think we're probably better than the other options out there, but I think a lot of the existing franchises don't offer a ton of value. The brands aren't very strong. Their onboarding systems for new customers isn't very strong.
mm,
They seem kind of more interested in selling franchises versus actually making the company
yeah,
better. So I just want to make sure it's 100% dialed in. So when we do hit that multiply button, we're going to have less issues.
yeah.
And again, just kind of streamline and focusing on one thing. But I mean, we do have all that stuff put together. We have the operating manual. We even have an online training platform, kind of similar to the Poop Scoop Millionaire, but for
Hmm.
internal employees. So every single job position, we have video training. So it's super streamlined to hire people. Um, so I think just getting that dialed in and then just developing the kind of that next layer of management. So we brought in a really strong operator that used to oversee franchise locations for a big pizza chain.
Hmm.
So kind of bringing in those skill sets. And then I need to bring in like a marketing manager, internal HR, internal finance. That's kind of the next thing that we are building out. And I think once we have those pieces, we'll be ready to hit the
Ready to roll.
100x button.
Hit the scale button. I love it.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it. Were you always, well, first of all, before I ask you this question, there's a reason that I kind of like to ask this question. One of them is I have a theory that, there are a lot of entrepreneurs are kind of born with like this entrepreneurial gene. That it's like, what's the old adage that says, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Every time you look and you just see opportunities everywhere, and
Mhm.
maybe one out of 100 might stick, but it's like
Mhm.
throwing spaghetti on the wall. But
Yeah.
and then you've got the people that just kind of like they create a really good product or service and it just kind of grows into a business and they're just like an accidental entrepreneur,
Mhm.
type thing. So what do you think? Do you fit in one of those two camps?
Maybe I know kind of growing up, the world I was in like Otis Orchards, Washington, a little suburb of Spokane, right? Kind of a sheltered life. It's like I didn't know what was necessarily possible. Get out of high school, get into college, it opens up more opportunities. Get into business, and then all of a sudden the world gets even bigger. So I don't know if I was necessarily born with it, but it was just as the world got bigger and more opportunities presented itself, it just kind of seemed like the no-brainer way to go. Not that there's anything wrong with like working a job or whatnot, but you're just kind of capped in a lot of ways.
Hmm. Yeah, there's no doubt. Would you consider yourself like currently unemployable? Are you
Yeah.
have you worked for yourself so much? And I'd be a terrible employee right now.
Unless I got like a really cool job, like if I worked for like the school platform that our community's on or something like that, that might be cool. If I'm working for like a really big company with maybe some equity involved, that might be something of interest. But yeah, for most jobs, like yeah, there's there's no way.
So is your mind just race all the time? Is it always thinking about ways to improve this, the swoopscoop.com company? Or
Mhm.
are there times you just gotta, hey, I gotta unplug. I gotta get poop off my mind for just a little while and think about
Yeah, I
something
think
else.
yeah, no, I really definitely think a lot about the business quite a bit. I'm in a position I'm not a pooper scooper. We got managers. I got a business partner that helps manage a lot of the operations. So not really in the day to day of the business. My whole job is basically to make the right decisions, and then I oversee the marketing right now.
Hmm.
Is my piece that I'll be handing off next. So really, it's basically my job to think and not make bad decisions.
Yeah,
So.
I get it. I mean, from a marketing standpoint, how did you approach it, or have you tried like a number of different things, like especially when you're thinking about like social media, like,
Mhm.
maybe video, like Instagram, kind of TikTok, Facebook, stuff like that. Did
Mhm.
you approach it from here's the problem, here's the solution, pretty simple, pretty clean cut, on brand, no nonsense, just here's a service, you need it, we can provide it, that type of thing. Or you've seen so many companies that almost look at it from like a humorous standpoint, and like they're, sometimes it doesn't even seem to even like relate to the product at all. But I could see so many different, angles you could take on this to, just have hilarious little clips and things like that, just for just be top of mind, just to associate fun with the brand, type thing. So what have you tried? What's worked? What's not worked?
We've tried a lot of things. So top three channels, I'll tell you. Number one is going to be Facebook/Instagram ads. They run cross platform. Number two is going to be Google ads and SEO. Kind of the issue with that, as I mentioned, is there's not a lot of search volume, but if you're able to drive demand through your social media ads, you can start picking up clients there. And number three is truck wraps, as far as most effective. Other things we've tried: TV ads, we've tried running billboards, we've done a lot of direct mail. We even had like a partnership with Pizza Hut where they let us put our dog poop coupons on their pizza boxes. That did not work at all. So we've tried all sorts of stuff.
You don't want the products competing with each other. They're like, I can't even think about that now. I'm trying
I don't know why they let us do that. I think Domino's shut us down, and then Pizza. Yeah, I think we spent like $5,000 and got 0 customers from it. So it's kind of my bad.
Hey, live and learn. You learn. It's a $5,000 class you just took. So to learn what not to do. I love it.
Don't put dog poop ads on pizza. Lesson learned.
Right. Note to self: don't ever do that again. Yeah. We can be funny, but that wasn't funny. So we're not going to do that again. So
fun to talk about though.
Well, you know what? When you look back and you're $100 million company, you're thinking, you know what? Well, we spent $5,000 on pizza, putting an ad on a pizza box, but it doesn't matter anymore because we did a lot of things right. Yeah, we did a lot of things right. I am curious, like, you talked about, there is competition out there. Obviously, there are other, little franchises and little attempts at, this service. I mean, it's a service-based business. Of course, there's gonna be competition, but what do you do? And you mentioned a few of these things, but what do you do specifically to kind of differentiate that said, you know what, we scaled in areas because of these three things. Customers, when they're reviewing us, when we're getting feedback from them, they're telling every time we're hearing over and over and over and over again, you guys did this. Here's three things you did. What would those be?
So number one, maybe not from a customer perspective, but the number one thing I think we did right is we priced our services correctly. So we're on the top of the market. I mean, we have competitors that charge half what we do, but we have 10 times as many customers as they do. And because of that, we're able to reinvest and hire better employees. We're able to pay people well. We're able to provide benefits. We're able to spend more on marketing. So I'd say that's probably the number one thing that we do. The other thing is response time. So kind of building a high customer service. Somebody wants a quote. We actually have an instant form on our website. They can actually sign up for services without talking to anybody. But if they do want to talk to somebody and they call in, we're answering the phone right away. And then as far as a few other kind of more in the business things that we do, we clean all of our equipment with the kennel grade disinfectant. So we're not spreading parvo or anything in between yards. So we do that in between every yard. And we'll also take a gate photo and send it to the customer so they know that we fulfilled the service and they know their dog's not going to get let out. Probably 1 out of 5.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
1 out of 5 out of our reviews mentioned kind of that gate photo. I think we've got over 1,000 5-star reviews now between all the locations and profiles, which is nice.
That's amazing. So what do you do when you get a 1-star? How do you respond? Probably doesn't happen very often, but
it doesn't. It happens every once in a while. But we'll respond. We'll reach out, see if there's anything that we could do to make it better. My partner that runs kind of the operations side of things, he'll typically handle that. And if we can't resolve it, we'll just write a heartfelt, genuine reply to the review on the platform. That's all you can do.
Yeah. Hey, there are some people out there. There are a few people out there you can't please. You just can't. You do everything perfect.
There's always a handful.
There's always that handful for sure. And now here's a quick word from one of our new sponsors on Rising Tide Startups. Every episode of Rising Tide Startups is sponsored by Pod Brand Media. So you started your own company or branded podcast, and now it's fading. Let Pod Brand give it new life. Check out podbrandmedia.com to learn more. Hey, but as we get to wrap up here, I want to ask you another question that I think would be really pertinent to our listeners because like there are so many that are, sitting there going, "Hey, I'm just thinking about doing something," but I want to learn from both the things that worked and the things that didn't work, from people that we listen to as the guests on this podcast. So,
Yeah.
if you had to go back to 2001, maybe even before that, what are some things that if you had to go back today, what are some things that you would do that you now have learned that you think would be game changers, very, very early? What are two or three things and they're kind of business agnostic. It doesn't really matter what business it is, but what are two or three lessons that you could leave our listeners with that you really think, hey, you've got to do these things, and these will make all the difference?
Yeah. Probably the number one thing I would say, and I think this is the most important for pretty much any business, number one business metric, in my opinion, anyways, is tracking your customer acquisition cost to your customer lifetime value. So if you can go out and you can get a customer for $100 and they're going to be worth $2,500, you should spend as much money as you possibly can to scale the business. And that was something that we didn't understand on the first year. Otherwise, I probably would have been able to grow this thing like in 18 months instead of 3 or 4 years. So I'd say that's probably the number one thing. And the other things, there's just a lot of things that I talked about. I think it's really response time and getting back to people quick. People don't like to wait. So I would say those are probably the two most important things. And then as you're moving forward, just trying to anticipate what the bottleneck of your business is going to be. For most people, that is going to be customer acquisition, especially when you're first starting off. If you don't have a marketing background like I did, that's going to be a big challenge for a lot of people. But then beyond that, it was, okay, we got all these customers. Now we got to figure out how to hire people. Now I got to buy all these trucks so that we can fulfill the service. I think I had like 7 personal loans at one time before we can get an SBA loan on all these trucks. Just, yeah, kind of trying to think ahead. And just what I really like about this number is it's pretty mathematical. So one person can handle 125, 150 customers. You can get a customer for this amount of cost. They're worth this much. This percentage leaves every month. So really knowing your numbers is a total game changer, no matter what size of business you are.
Well, and certainly when you scale this out and franchise this out, I mean, you got that dialed in. You can just tell, hey, if you do these things, it's almost formulaic. If you do these things, this is probably going to be the result. This is the range that'll fall within, generally. But man, that's amazing. You've built an amazing service, and man, we just applaud your efforts and just the things that you guys are putting together, and looking forward to what the 10X franchise launch is going to look like, and we'll have you back on in a couple of years and say, okay, now what? Now what'd you learn now?
Yeah.
So
Exactly. So it's been fun.
There anything that I haven't asked you that you just kind of wrap up with, and then maybe just tell people where's the best place to find you online?
So really appreciate you having me on. It's definitely been a great business. If you want to learn more about it or you want to interact with me, we have a YouTube channel. It's just /Scoop Start. And then we also have that online community, the Poop Scoop Millionaire. That's pretty much the only way for people to get a hold of me right now is if you're a community member. I get dozens of messages on a daily basis, and it's literally impossible to get a hold of me if you call into our office. So please don't do that.
Yeah, I get it.
You'll not get a hold of me. But those would be the two places. If you want free info, check out the Scoop Start YouTube channel. If you want to talk to me and learn more about the business, definitely check out the community.
All right. And that's at SwoopScoop. That community is there, or is it on Facebook, or where's the best
it's on a
place
platform called School. So if you just Google Poop Scoop Millionaire, will be the first like 5 links that pop up. So
all right. Sounds good.
Yep.
Well, Will, thanks again for just sharing your story. Thanks for sharing these insights and the golden nuggets that we like to mine during these interviews, and really just playing your part in helping all boats rise in a rising tide. Will, thanks again. Have a great evening.
You too. Thank you.
We hope you heard some great takeaways and are now ready to take action yourself. As always, thank you for listening and helping all boats rise in a rising tide.